Hello, hello. Welcome to this episode. So, today the tables are turned, and I am getting interviewed by the lovely and smart and professional Dessy from Fashion Insiders Co. Dessy is a fashion business strategist. She sells online courses. She's based in London, and she was gracious enough to have me on her podcast. And I am going to share that with you today. We talk about all the things that have to do with small fashion brands. And we sort of compare like Europe, what's going on in Europe versus the States. We talk wholesale, we talk all the things. Okay, she's great. I think you're gonna like it. And I hope you enjoy the interview.
I thought that we can connect and chat a little bit about how the fashion industry and small brands are getting affected at the moment with everything that's going on around the world.
Absolutely.
And also we can maybe compare some notes of what's working, in Europe, America, and give some tips to small brands how to navigate these interesting times we live in.
Perfect. Yes, I'm so down. Yes.
So what's your background? I know you were, you had your own business, you were a designer, you had your own brand.
Yeah. So when I was 25 years old, I opened up a retail store and I designed all of the clothes for the store. They're manufactured here in Chicago, where my boutique was, and also in New York. And 6 months after opening up my shop, I was approached by a big box retailer, Marshall Field's, now Macy's, and they said, "Do you sell wholesale?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah, of course." So I started shipping my first big box store 6 months after opening, like shipping.
Wow.
And I went on to sell the Bloomingdale's and Saks and a lot of, hundreds of specialty stores across the country. And I had reps in 5 different cities. So I had this wholesale and direct to consumer brick and mortar shop. And I designed most of the clothes in the store, and then a lot of it was wholesale. We did catalogs, all the things, whatever. And then after 14 years and 2 kids, I decided to sell it after my second son was born. He had a lot of health challenges and it was going to be rough. Things were rough. He's great now. He's awesome. And so then after I sold the business, I did retail consulting for a while, inventory control, inventory forecasting, open to buy, marketing, all the things. And then I started Fashion Brain, and I love helping other people do what I do. And I really focus on, or what I did, I should say. And my focus is really on helping small brands get traffic online and get sales, because a lot of us, when we go into it, we're designers, right? And we're really good at like designing a product and picking out the fabrics, but marketing and content and emails, it's not our first choice of what we want to do all day. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I specialize in, because having a great product nobody knows about, that's not going to be super helpful.
Yeah, that's so interesting, because I similarly, like you, in a similar sort of years time span, I entered the fashion industry after graduating, working for brands, for luxury brands, and creating product. And back in those days, I don't know if you remember, but 20 plus years ago, very often you were your own designer in many brands. This is before the cult of the big designers. Mm-hmm. And so developing products came really easy to me. And later on, 10 years after working for the industry, I launched my own fine jewelry brand, because I thought, I know how to develop product. But where I stumbled was the whole sales, simply because I just refused to sell. I just thought my product is gorgeous. And I just didn't really make an effort.
Build it and they will come, right?
Yeah, correctly, yes.
Yeah.
So now, after building a platform about manufacturing and shutting it down 3 years ago, like you, I pivoted to working with brands and helping them with all of that experience, how to, launch and grow profitable and successful brands, because if you build it, they don't just come.
No, they
That's
don't.
What we've learned.
I'm sure, I think we all felt that, I was like, I have lots of friends and family, and they shopped and they bought and they were awesome for the first week. And then I was like, I have this high rent in Lincoln Park in Chicago. And I'm like, okay, I see people walking by. Don't you see my store here? Don't you see my windows? Like, why aren't they coming in? Like, I was really just like, I didn't know it was going to be like this,
Yeah. So what were you, because on your website, when I was reading, you said something that you had a lot of hard lessons that you learned. What were like some of them?
Oh God. Okay. So
Give me the top three.
first of all, I knew how to design a product. I knew how to find a pattern maker, knew how to source fabric, sort of, right? But I knew nothing about business. I opened up a retail store, having worked for a total of 3 weeks over Christmas break at a big department store in retail. Okay. So I opened up this retail store thinking I know things. And I'm a good designer. Here's like the top 3 things that I screwed up in the beginning: pricing 100%, to the point where the day before I opened my store, a mentor, a woman in Chicago who was in the industry, who worked for a not-for-profit, and she was an amazing human. She visited the shop and she comes to the store and I'm like, oh my God, I'm so excited. I'm launching tomorrow. My big party's tomorrow. And she looks around. She's like, oh, Jane, everything's so beautiful, lovely. Oh my God, you're amazing. And I'm like soaking it all in. And then she goes, and honey, you are selling these at wholesale prices and you will be out of business in 6 months. Oh, my taxi's here. Gotta go. Like literally dropped that bomb and walked out the door. And I freaked out. I was like, I don't want to do all this work and be out of business in 6 months. And yet I had huge pricing fear of, I'm 25 years old when I opened the store. I wouldn't pay that much for a dress. How could I ask other people to pay that much for something I wouldn't even pay for myself? Not realizing that has nothing to do with anything. Really, it's like, what does the customer think is a fair price, right? Yeah. So I stayed up all night, stared at the ceiling, lost my mind, and decided I'm going to go balls out. If I'm going to do this, I'm going to go out of business in 3 weeks instead of 6 months. Okay. So I doubled the prices on everything the next day as much as I could. And thank God I did. And things sold, because I would have been completely screwed building up an audience based on one price point and then having to either go out of business because I didn't have any money, no cash flow, no margins, or I would have had to start over building a new clientele at the correct margins. Yeah. So that was rough.
Isn't it amazing how 25 years on, the same problems exist?
Yes. Oh my God, people do it all the time.
Yeah, crazy.
And sometimes they don't know the margins. Sometimes they get some really bad information off some dummy on YouTube who sells 7 t-shirts last week, and sometimes they're like me, where they kind of know what they should do, but they don't do it because they're afraid.
Yeah. I think the fear factor is huge.
It's huge. It's so huge. And it was, it still was one of the most painful decisions of my life to figure out. Yeah. It was so scary. It was so scary. Yeah, but better at least to do it in the beginning than later. I've worked with so many people who've just had to completely start over, really having that same mindset of, I want to give people a good deal, Yeah.
Do you know, one of my lessons when I was doing my brand was that I launched my brand in 2008 when the recession happened. And it was very expensive, 18 karat gold with gems, etc. And I decided that I needed to get advice from people who have been there, done it, survived the whole recession in the past. So I sought out some advice from successful jewelry business people. Yeah. But I didn't think that, I didn't think to look for someone who was doing 18 karat gold. So I got advice from people who built silver brands, and they were like, forget a gold, go into silver. So I went and created, on top of my 18 karat gold, I went and created silver collections, which I absolutely hated. And therefore, whenever, I was doing trade shows or seeing shops, even if they took orders in silver, I just would not deliver them. I just did not want my brand to be in silver.
You're like, your body would not let you do it. Like, yep. The resistance was just too big.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. And it's so interesting because we see, oh, that's working for them. I better do that.
Yeah.
Right. And it's only natural. I've done it. I do it still. But number one, do you really know if it's working for them? Right. We're not looking at their books. We don't know their margins. We don't know if they're really making money or they just have an amazing social media presence sometimes. Yeah. Right. And number two, who cares? They love selling silver. You hated it, right?
Yeah, completely.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things that I look back at. I'm like, it would have been a really simple fix. Like to think, when I opened up from a retail standpoint, I did not have a back room. I didn't have a back room. I didn't have a place for overstock or backstock. I didn't know about overstock or backstock.
Or stock management, yeah.
No, I just ordered. I mean, later I became a retail consultant, that's all we did, right? But all I thought was open up with this many pieces. And the way I decided how many pieces to open was I measured, I took a ruler, a tape measure, and I was like, okay, a 48-inch rack holds this many units, and I have room for this many racks. Order that many, done. Never thinking about what happens when it sells.
Yeah. Funny, I had a similar lesson along those lines with collections. I put so much money into these expensive jewelry pieces, and they were big with a lot of gold and gems and things like this. And then I had this horrific silver, right? And there was a lady, she's passed away now, but she was a jewelry consultant out of New York. And I booked a trip and I went to see her. And she just took one look at my collections, made two piles. One was a smaller pile, one was a bigger pile. And she said, the bigger pile, forget about it. That's not working. This is what it's about. And she, even though I had been for 10 years in the industry, she was the one who taught me about the importance of product range and how you build collections and all of that. So then no wonder brands are not growing and stock runs out if you're not, ranging it properly.
So on point, especially if you're selling wholesale, these days, direct to consumer with your website, sometimes you can be very, very item driven or only have one or two products and make a really nice living. But if like when I would show up and I'm selling to Saks Fifth Avenue, forget it. Like if I didn't have a tight collection, they wouldn't even look at me,
Yeah, correct. Yeah. So interesting. You mentioned wholesale because you were like geared up towards wholesale so much. What's your opinion of wholesale at the moment, post pandemic?
I have a love-hate relationship with it. I think the internet is the best thing that ever happened to entrepreneurs. And I think that people should do what is right for them. For some people, wholesale is right for them. But for many, it's just one slice. And I often think it's a good idea not to tackle wholesale and direct to consumer online at the same time. Yeah. Like if you start with direct to consumer and you do well and you grow that, the stores will find you and want to buy from you. But trying to do both at the same time, I mean, it is not recommended to sell to a major department store within 6 months of opening. Okay. Let's just say I totally messed up because I didn't have a good coach, a mentor. I didn't know the lingo. And so one day, Dessy, I get this order from Marshall Fields and it's like a $40,000 order. And I'm like, oh shit, I got to go find, 18 grand to produce it or whatever I needed. Right. And so I get this order and I'm all excited. And I fly back to, first of all, they said, will you come show us your line in Minneapolis? And I lived in Chicago. And I was like, yeah, sure. And I look at flights and they're $550. And it's like a 45-minute flight. And this was, how many years ago? And I was like, I don't have that money. I can't. And I just charged it. Right. So like I took major risks and I was like, fuck it, whatever. I'm going there. If I get an order, I'm going to figure it out. Right. So I charge the ticket. I go there. I show the line. I so didn't know what I was doing. They said to me, so what's your delivery? And I go, delivery? And she goes, I'm thinking like, I don't know, via truck probably. Like, and so she says, what I mean, Jane, is if we place an order with you, when will you ship it? And I was like, oh, okay. So like, I'm counting on my fingers, like 1 month, 2 months. How about April? And she's like, yeah, how about April 15th? I'm like, okay, that sounds good. Okay. So I get this order. So dumb. I go home. The assistant buyer calls up and she says, Jane, we're so excited about your order. We're putting in the PO now. And I'm all like, okay, it's confirmed. Just one quick question. With most of our vendors, we do 8-10 EOM terms. Would that be good with you? And I was like, sure, if that's what you do with most of your vendors. And I said, yes, not knowing what it was. 8-10 EOM is basically I gave away an 8% discount when they'd already placed the order. I didn't need to do that. And so just not knowing some of the terms, some of the language, some of the, custom, like how do you order fabrics? What's the best way if somebody does come into my store? What's the best way not to scare them off? Like just basic things about human psychology, what it takes to get a sale, what makes a good offer when you're selling something. And then some of those just terms, like we didn't learn that in school, right? I went to FIT and we learned how to be a designer, assuming we'd be a designer for a big brand. So I didn't know business. I didn't
and wholesalers, American wholesalers are really tough compared to the Europeans. I mean, you're hardcore.
And I was hardcore when I had a store. I mean, I was hardcore. And so, I mean, yeah, there's one amazing thing that's happened in the States recently, a company called Faire, Faire. Are you familiar with them at all?
Yeah.
Yeah. What they do is they have a brilliant business model. So if you guys don't know, I'll just briefly explain it. Yeah. Let's say I'm the designer of these sweaters. Okay. I can list my products on Faire, assuming you get accepted, and the retailers can buy the products with a guarantee that they can return them if they don't sell. And the vendor gets paid as soon as you ship the product. So there's really like no risk for either.
So it's kind of like sale or return, but getting paid up front.
Exactly. It's almost like consignment. But what's brilliant, I was like, how could Faire do this? How could they possibly take things back from all these crazy retailers? Me being one of them. What they do is then they have a third element of their business where they sell direct to consumer. Because a lot of times the pieces that would get returned, there's nothing wrong with them. It's just, it wasn't a fit for their store. So they are making money on all the ends, yet everybody has a risk reversal. So in that case, wholesale is pretty awesome. But I am a huge, most of what I do is work with brands for direct to consumer because I think it's just way more fun to have lots of little bosses than just a few big bosses. And, you sort of feel like you're at the mercy of these stores if they are continuing to place volume. At the same time, having some wholesale strategy can be amazing because it can really pad your orders and you can get better prices because of the volume.
Yeah, and also for authority and visibility, it's amazing.
True. Right. You know what? It's street cred. Yeah. You're right.
But I feel like it's really lost its way. It's really changed. There's less and less boutiques and independents who kind of really aspirational, and also, they're really kind of struggling now. So the payment terms are not there. I mean, they're really not supportive of up and coming brands.
I don't think they have been in a million years. I don't know if they ever were.
But post-pandemic, I feel like they're so risk averse. It's
well, I'll tell you this. So when I was around, in 2001 when 9/11 happened, and I mean, business stopped. And then in 2008, I have a friend who she had orders for 36 stores. And I think 32 of them canceled their orders.
Wow.
Right. So I'm a big fan of diversifying your sales channels and your risk. Now, when something like the 2008 recession happens, 9/11 happens, it's out of our control, 100%. What we can control is how deep into any one channel or any one retailer or any one manufacturer. I like to spread the love among different contractors as well, because I had a contractor did a ton of business with us. She closed up for a month and went to Poland when her mom died. And I couldn't get my stuff. I couldn't get my patterns, nothing, everything shut down. And so I was like, note to self, always have a legit backup factory, no matter what.
Never have all your eggs in one basket. Yeah, totally. I remember in 2008, so many big brands and small brands went out of business because when the going was good, they were sitting on so much stock. And then when the recession came, they just couldn't shift it. And I remember one particular brand, I'm not going to mention the name, but literally every month she had some for sale. It was great. But I think that ultimately devalued her brand. She barely scraped through, but I think her brand was never the same since then.
Yeah,
and
but
factories went bust. I mean,
inventory is the biggest. I mean, it's your biggest expense, really.
Yeah.
And so if you're sitting on inventory as a retailer, oof, I mean, whatever you can do to minimize your risk with inventory on hand is advisable. I always suggest order the minimum. Like even if you're getting started with labels and hang tags, like anything, I know you're going to pay more if you order the minimum, but you're probably going to change your mind. You may have to change the name of your business. Like until you really know what's happening, pay a little bit more to get the minimum on everything. So your risk is, you're not as vulnerable, I think.
Don't you love it when I get often designers who say, oh, I found a factory and the MOQ is like 300 or 500 units and they haven't even started. And I'm like, how are you going to sell so many units? But they seem to think to have a game plan, SEO, Facebook ads, this, that, the other. It's so easy to think that you're going to shift 500 units, but the reality is,
especially the ones that are the most difficult to try to explain this to are ones who work for bigger brands already. Because they're like, well, at blah, 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 we sell, 3,000 units of something. And, it's hard to explain, like they have a sales system. You don't have any of that.
Yeah.
And also to understand the slim percentage of people that come to your site who actually make a purchase. A conversion for a website is, between 1% and 3%. So if you want to get one sale today, you need 100 people today, at least, especially if you're new, right? And lower if you are a higher end brand, which doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It's just a lot of traffic.
And it has to be the right audience.
Totally. Yes. Good point. Yeah. Just getting eyeballs on your site is not going to help if it's,
Yeah. But so I think that we live in quite an interesting time at the moment. It's kind of, I swing between excited and freaked out at the moment. But, there's a real kind of sense that with all the sanctions that are happening on Russia at the moment, with the current war in Europe, with the inflation and everything, we're at the precipice of something like a big recession or something. And I know that, I don't know about the US, but the brands I work with, sales are happening, but it's kind of a bit hard going, right? What would you advise? What do you advise, for brands who are kind of scared?
If you have a relationship with the customer, you as a brand or you as the owner with the customer, that is the most important thing, right? So I guess what I mean is this, like if you own, let's say Starbucks, everybody knows Starbucks. Okay.
Yeah.
If Starbucks all of a sudden figured out, oh my gosh, I'm just going to riff on here, but like coffee causes 28 kinds of cancer and you'll lose your fingernails and you can never drink it again. Okay. And then they just started selling mud water and tea. There's still a ton of people who will go to Starbucks because we just love the atmosphere. We love the way they'll put our special milk in. We like the chairs. We like the smell, although that would change with the coffee. So if we just like them, we like that interaction, we like the logo, whatever it is, we'll buy anything from Starbucks. So a lot of us are going to still go there every day, no matter what they're selling. And that's the same for a brand, right? So if you have a relationship with the customer and they trust you and they know you and they like you, and let's say the pandemic happens and all of a sudden you're selling like sweatshirts and stuff, that can totally work. Like even if you let's say something happens and you're like, okay, this is a recession, I can no longer sell $1,000 dresses. Maybe I need to pivot to a different product. They'll often stay with you. If they really like you, they'll buy anything you want to sell them. So not everybody, but a certain percentage. So what I see is when a brand has a movement behind it or a real strong purpose, they're never going to have a problem. Yes, things are going to be wavy, right? But the brands that are niched tightly are doing really well. The brands that are like, I have a cute red sweater, much harder. Yeah. Because
and also from my point of view, in recession, you always have opportunities that just appear all of a sudden. Could be a new trend, It could be, the demand changed to something else. And if you have a diversified manufacturing base, you can, adapt and offer something new.
Yes. I mean, none of us want to end up like Blockbuster, right? We don't. Yeah. But what I've noticed also in the last couple of years, and I'm not exactly sure if it's pandemic related or not, is what I've noticed is people who are designers, or they own a brand, or they're a blogger, or they're whatever, they're much more willing to cross over into something else. So like, I work with a lot more people now who are offering a class and they're teaching something in addition to their physical product. And sometimes they're related and it's the same audience, and sometimes it's not. But it's sort of like that actor who all of a sudden starts singing and they're like, why don't you just stick to acting? Well, why? You're good at both.
I'm a real supporter of the idea of omnichannel, bringing different sources of revenue. You just cannot, if one thing the pandemic taught us is that you cannot just have one source of income. That's it.
My suggestion for anyone listening who may be struggling, or they're worried about they will be struggling, to take 80% of your business and just do what's solid that you feel is going to work, and the other 20% to take huge risks, ridiculous risks. Like when I had a clothing store, all of a sudden I was like, I'm going to do duvets. I found this fabric. I was like, this is perfect for bedding. I'm going to do this. I'm going to put in, if my budget is $100,000 in inventory for this period, I'm going to put 20 grand into this new thing and promote it. That did not work.
I was about to say, really?
That one didn't, but the next time I did baby blankets, that kicked ass. And then I had a whole baby blanket business that I sold wholesale, online, all of it. But, like, we have to be willing to do something different. Yeah. If you're like, but I am a sweater designer, that's what I do. Well, I don't know. Maybe you sell candles too. Just don't be Blockbuster. Just don't say, I didn't see it coming. Okay. Yeah. Things are going to get weird. I think you're right. I think things are going to get weird with the economy, and we don't even know what that means. So do you have a deep enough relationship with the person on the other side of that transaction that they're going to stay with you and go with you, and you are able to ask them and find out, what are you guys doing now? What are you buying? What do you need? How can I help? You don't need my red sweaters. Maybe I can do something else,
Another thing to remember is that money don't just disappear. They just move hands. So it's a question of, finding where's your audience shifted. Has it shifted, or do you need to find it anew? Because money's just moved.
Money just moves. And we've seen a move from products to experiences, for sure. Yeah. What does that mean for you? Well, if you do sourcing in India, maybe you lead a tour group to India the next time you go, and you make money doing that. Like there's an endless supply of money. Like there is no need for anyone to suffer not making enough cash. Like all you need to do is to go into a Maserati dealership and hang out for, 5 hours, and you'll be like, there's some damn rich people in this world, right? It's just, are you hitting them with their emotion, with what they want, not what you think they need, but what they want, right? Because when I was teaching a college class a while back, I looked around and like every kid has the latest iPhone, every one of them. And I know these kids are mostly working, and they're not a bunch of rich kids where their parents are paying for college. That is their priority. That is what they're going to spend money on. What is it for your group,
Yeah, and it's about also how you position your product to make it feel like a priority, right? Mm-hmm. So you mentioned earlier, before we started chatting, I mentioned to you Facebook. Like a lot of people throw so much money at Facebook advertising, and I said to you, it's changed. It doesn't really work, and you said, "Oh no, actually, it works."
It works.
Tell me what you're seeing that's working for your clients.
So there's a few things that are working that are different. The first I would say is that, so with iOS changes, if you guys, probably most people know this, but just in case, it's become an option if you have an iPhone to say, don't track me in around the internet anymore. Okay. So retargeting has become much more difficult, and retargeting is sort of the last stage of ads. You have like awareness, and then, so if you have a top line ad that gets traffic, and then you would retarget them to get them to buy or send a DPA, a dynamic product ad, whatever. Now, if you can't get that last thing in front of them, which is the ad that closes the sale, things are not fun on Facebook, right? There's a few different ways around that with like the Facebook API, things like that. But there's also a strategy that's pretty simple. So let's say I'm just going to take one of my clients who she sells like, I'm trying to see who I should use as an example. Okay, I'm just going to take the example that I use often. Erica from Rare Dirndl. She sells German dirndls. So for people who do like, I know, right? The tiniest niche ever. And she kicks ass at it. Okay. She's an excellent marketer. But when I first met her, she said, marketing makes me want to throw up. So she hated it, right? Like most of us in the beginning. Okay. So she sells these German dirndls, which is like the St. Pauli girl outfit. If for those of you who don't know, because I didn't know.
Yeah.
And how
Sound
many
of
people,
music, right?
Yes, yeah, exactly. Sound of music. Okay. So let's say you're Erica. Okay. Ads in general can be tricky for her because the audience is pretty small. But what you can do, what she can do and has done is make content asking the most common questions that you get. So if it's, well, what shoes do I wear with a dirndl? Or how do I lace that thing up? Or maybe it's what blouse it looks good if you're small busted, right? So something that either has to do with the product or leads them down the path to the product. What you could do is you could make 3 videos. Okay. One video is like, hey, here's the top 2 questions I get about wearing a dirndl when you're just going to Oktoberfest and you're, you know, like she has a customer that's hardcore dirndl people, like these girls who have dirndl closets and do German dancing, and people like me who just go like to Munich for Oktoberfest, right? So you make 3 videos teaching something, anything. Hey, if you ever wondered like what to do when because now your hair's gray in the pandemic and it used to be red, here's 3 things to think about what color you should wear this week, whatever. Okay. Anybody can do this. You do a 2-minute, 5-minute, it doesn't matter the time. You do a video, you put it up on Facebook and Instagram. You do a second one teaching a second thing. You do a third one teaching a third thing. And then you put it up organically, but then you can turn it into an ad in front of audiences that would make sense for you. Okay. And then rather than trying so hard to get them off Facebook right away, you create these audiences on Facebook, people who watch 50% of that video, somebody who watched 75% of that video. I mean, these days, if you get someone to watch 75% of a 6-minute video, they're engaged with you. Okay. Yeah. And then you can show them the next thing and ask them to take the next step with you, and then try to get them over to your site. Okay.
So it's like micro commitments.
Exactly.
Based on action. Yeah.
Yes. And you're sort of building these invisible lists on the platform. And then
so that's how you circumnavigate the whole algorithm.
That's thing. One way. Yeah. And that's heavy content. And it's really inexpensive to get someone, if you're only going after video views, very inexpensive. But somebody's watched 5 minutes of your video and then you pop up again and go, oh, let me teach you this. The 3 videos don't have to be sequential. They shouldn't be sequential, right? Anybody who watched 50% of this, show them this. Anybody who did this, show them, hey, hop on my list and get a discount code. Show them, hey, take my quiz, like whatever else you have. The ultimate goal is a sale. But my ultimate goal from social is to get them on your list, your email or your SMS list. And then once you have them on your list, you have such a higher chance of selling to somebody than just social media.
Well, you have to send newsletters, but
Oh, you have to send emails. Yeah. Yeah. Having them on your list and never sending is not gonna, right.
So many people are afraid of sending newsletters because they think they might piss them off and they'll jump off the list.
Like I might be afraid just by the term. That's all. Like, yes, people are afraid to send emails because they don't want to bother people. But like, how can you make your emails so fun? Like people want to binge on them instead of like binging on Netflix, right? Like, what if you didn't do emails that were boring? How about that? Like, what if you didn't just do emails that say, buy my stuff?
Yeah, exactly.
There's more to it. There is more to it than that.
Exactly.
You know, buy, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
The other thing you can do with Facebook ads too is we're starting to see it work to do a Facebook lead ad. But again, this is if you have a content strategy, if you have, I mean, everybody does. Like, so if I sell this mug, right? and maybe my mug is like, has to do with nature. And so, you could offer 7 ways to connect more with nature this weekend without leaving your house. Okay. It's just a PDF guide, no big deal, a little cheat sheet.
Yeah.
And you can run a lead ad, which I used to not be in favor of, but now with iOS 14, it seems to be working again.
Oh no, I'm a big fan of this method, and I do it with my clients because completely. Okay. Well, that lead magnet per se, a document that is not like buy my product, but hey, here's some value.
Yes.
Just offering yourself as a value, and it's not all about your brand, but it's some other things that are going to pre-qualify whoever's interested in that PDF. Most likely is going to be your type of client, 100%. And they're going to learn something, and they're going to find out how your brand also adds value as part of the proposition. So yeah, I'm a big fan of this method.
So a traditional way that I've done for years is with the clients and with myself is, hey, download this cool thing. They click, they go to your landing page on your site and they download it. And then you keep in touch with them, email, all the things. However, you can't retarget as easily. So now lead ads has been around forever. I used to run them years ago. A lead ad is where you take their name and email on Facebook. They don't leave Facebook. And then you have, a third-party software, no big deal, that gets the lead into your customer relations management, right? But all the action is staying on Facebook. So then who signed up for your thing, and you can retarget them on Facebook because they never left Facebook.
Yeah.
So that's a slight but big difference. The cost per lead is much, much cheaper. However, the reason that I used to really not like it is the quality of the leads are not always as good because it's a very micro commitment. You don't even have to leave Facebook. You don't even have to look at somebody's sales page or landing page for the lead magnet. But let me tell you, it's a volume game. So if you're going to get leads, which my clients are at 32 cents, you can afford to get a lot of them, and then a smaller percentage might convert to a sale, but it's okay because your cost per lead is low.
Yeah, but you can create a lookalike audience after that. I mean, you can use that data in different ways.
Yeah, but for the buyers though, right?
Yeah.
Well, because sometimes you get a bunch of leads and they just are not good and they don't ever buy. And so, I like to just test it, make sure they're buying.
Yeah.
But sometimes it takes them, 3-4 months to buy. So
it's a long game. It's not it's not a
painkiller
immediately.
They don't think that with Facebook ads. I think they think you should put the picture up, they buy. Yay.
Well, listen, I think the whole building a fashion brand is a long game. It's a long distance marathon. There's no shortcuts.
If there were, I would be all in. All in.
No, me too. So let's just wrap this up. What would you top tips would be for people who, are already in the game, they've invested, they maybe just a little worried about the whole landscape and everything going on?
100% go deeper with the people you already have. Realize they bought from you for a reason. And it wasn't because they couldn't find it somewhere else. Okay. Nobody's naked in this house, in this city. Okay. So the people who've signed up on your list, the people who've bought from you, they like you. Okay. You can send more emails and you can get more creative with your emails. Like one of my clients who has a kids line, she'll send an email that one day that was like, this is not a COVID notice from school. Because they're all moms and we're all getting all these 85,000 codes, right? And it was just like, hey, how you doing? I know you're getting all these COVID notices. I know you're struggling. I'm thinking of you. P.S. We have more dinosaurs coming next week. Like, it wasn't even a sales email, but people love her because she cares about them and she relates to them and reaches out even when she's not asking for the sale. So lean into the people you have and love them up and give them so much love and value and content and motivation and assurances and virtual hugs, and then ask for the sale another time. You can do both. Okay. So I would lean in hard in that. And the second thing I would do is I would consider TikTok. I really would.
Really?
I know I don't want to either, but there's too much evidence right now of smaller brands who are using it and creating that know, like, and trust factor so much more quickly because you can actually get discovered over there.
Yeah.
So,
Well, that's what I was going to say, because it's a younger audience, even though there's quite a lot of oldies I hear getting into it. But I think it's great for discoverability. You can get discovered, but you can then move them through the links, etc., somewhere else where you have a deeper connection and you develop a conversation.
like all social media, please get them off social media on your list.
Yeah, yeah.
Because you own your list. We don't own TikTok, and you know
Yeah.
how these social medias come and go, and they shut down and they shut you down, and like it's no bueno. But yeah, it's not for teenagers anymore. And I was just reading a stat that the amount of like business that's happening over there is it's leading every other platform right now, which I don't even know that can be true. So I should probably check that stat before I say it again. But it literally was like 2021, more business, like it resulted in more sales than any other platform. And maybe that's because big brands are using it too. I mean, I was just there, and Cartier had a TikTok ad that you clicked over and you got a little landing page that said welcome or whatever. And then the bag that they did the ad for was $2,400. And then immediately when I was looking at it for a minute, it popped up and said, hey, a brand ambassador will be with you soon to answer all your questions. Yeah. So if Cartier is working on selling $2,400 bags on TikTok, I'm pretty sure that everybody listening would maybe give yourself a few weeks to just investigate if it would be good for you.
Yeah. Well, it's again that 20% you mentioned earlier about taking risk, right? Mm-hmm. Wild risks and experimenting. I think TikTok is just faster paced, and it's kind of fun, and it doesn't take itself too seriously. I think Instagram's kind of lost it. It's a bit too wordy, and I'm just bored. Personally, I'm just bored.
You know what? That's an excellent point. And TikTok moves faster. It actually is funny. And I do suggest, if you just are getting started, don't follow a bunch of other brands. Like go follow what you like, gardening, tennis, like whatever you're into. So you get the vibe and you see the appeal, instead of just watching people do like dumb pranks. Like there's so much more than just dancing and lip syncing going on.
Yeah. And there are I follow some lawyers, for example, on TikTok, because I recently went into TikTok, but I follow a woman who's a lawyer, and she's got a very interesting way of giving bite-sized information. Someone asks a question and she just responds,
Oh, what does she do? Who is it? Do you remember?
No, I don't, but she gives legal advice. She just basically, it's like little bites of morsels of information, but it's really to the point.
Yes.
And I think it's her son, because he always says, Mom, is it costly, for example, to get custody of your child? And she says, well, actually, the easiest way to do it, and the one that's going to cost you less money, is blah, blah, blah. And it's like done in a minute. So
good. You guys, you guys can all do this. There's also what's working. There's two things. There's a one that's called Ms. Excel. I want to say it's something.
Like
that.
Yes.
Have you seen it? She just gives Excel tips.
Yeah.
So fabulous. And then there's Mrs. Somebody, who she makes these water bottles, these like multicolored water bottles. She has like 275,000 followers, and she just shows the process of her making it, and it's mesmerizing.
Wow.
So for any of you who make a product, or if you go to the factory, time-lapse videos, like live stream you making stuff, live stream a laser cutting machine, like people will watch all of that on TikTok. They really will.
Completely.
And you can, I don't know. I mean, I just hate to have to even do one more new thing. I think like all of us, I'm like, God, really? I have to now learn TikTok. But I think it's gotten to the point where if you don't jump in now, you're going to regret it. It's going to be like jumping into Instagram now, much harder than it was like 7 years ago.
Yeah. But this is a good point. I mean, everyone should find a way to get help into their business. You cannot do everything yourself.
Yeah.
So, and if you can't get help, what does that mean?
What does that mean? Does that mean someone else? Like, let's say you do have a fashion product and you get a blogger who does the fashion tips on behalf of your brand on TikTok. Like you can do that. one of my clients, she has a journal, like a planner kind of journal, and she has a version for teens. And she just sent me 2 of them. And my son and his best friend came home last night and like, hey guys, look what I have for you. And they were like, oh, I took pictures. Like, it was so easy.
Yeah.
She had to send me 2 books. And now she has content of cute kids using them, because user generated content, there's nothing that beats it. Nothing.
Yeah. But you know, when I said, what are you doing? What did I say just now? My question. I said, why can't you get someone to help you? That's it. I said, why can't you get someone to help you?
Yeah.
What I meant by this was actually on the business side, because I'm a lot more into the sort of the business side. But if you can't afford to even get a student or an intern to come and help you with social media or something like this, where is your focus? Why is your business not making money? Where are you bleeding money or leaking energy? And do you know what I mean?
Yes, that's such an interesting point.
Yeah, because actually my tip for anyone listening right now and worrying about the recession would be look at your product range. How deep are you into stock? Can you shift something and not sit on stock that can cripple you later?
Right.
Just focus on the range, on what sells, and don't just like experiment too much with wild ideas that are off brand.
You know what? I had one of my employees tell me one time, how about you do that on your weekends, Jane? Like, when I was going to develop a weird thing for the business, she's like, why don't you just make one for yourself? I was like, that's a great idea. Yeah. And how much time are you spending on products that don't have high margins? This is a big issue with our members.
Yeah.
They're like, well, I sell this, and this. I'm like, okay, what's your best seller?
Yeah.
The dress.
Don't know.
What's the margin? Whatever, something crappy. I'm like, what are the margins on the caftans? Way higher. I'm like, why aren't you a caftan business?
Yeah.
Like, why do you lead with a product that doesn't make you money?
Yeah.
Well, that's my bestseller.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be. If you put time and resources into this product category instead, that could be probably your bestseller, right?
Yeah.
If the margin is better, then why are you focused? Like, why are you a scrunchie company at all? For some of them, like, how many of them scrunchies you got to sell the same as a dress? Like, why are we selling break-even products at all, ever?
Yeah.
So interesting.
That's amazing. Yeah, very interesting. Gosh, this conversation can go on forever, but that's been amazing. I think we have some really good stuff to help people.
And by the way, guys, all the things I said, like, don't do that, I've done it all.
Yeah, I know. Me too.
I'm 100% focused on products that didn't make tons of money, thinking, well, it's a good seller. Like, makes no sense looking back, but at the time it was seemed right to me. I
think it's a rite of passage. Everyone does the same mistakes, no matter what someone tells you. It's just, you just have to burn your fingers to know yourself.
I think that's a good part of it. That is.
Yeah.
So my challenge today would be like, what did you guys learn? Is there one thing here that you're like, I'm going to do that. I'm going to try that. Like, is there something that one of us said that you're like, I should do that, and normally I would file it away in my should do pile, but I'm actually going to try it. What would it be? I'd love to know.
Exactly. Amazing. So Jane, where can people find you if they want to get more of you?
They can find us at fashionbrainacademy.com. Fashion Brain, BRAIN. And actually, I'm not sure when this is going to run, but I'm doing an send better emails bootcamp. So you can find that at fashionbrainacademy.com/bootcamp.
When are you doing this?
It's starting next week.
Oh, is it?
But I think it's going to be an evergreen thing. I think we're going to do it live the first time, because, members come to me and they're like, well, I don't make money with my emails. And I'm like, show them to me. And I find a lot of like, hey, PS, you can buy this here. And so we're really going to work on how to make offers without giving discounts,
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. Great. Perfect.
So much.
Well, so much fun. Thank you so much.
That's a wrap. I hope you enjoyed that. I really appreciate you, Dessy, for having me on your show. You guys, you can find her at fashioninsiders.co. Fashioninsiders.co. She is based in the UK, in London, and you can reach out, say hello, spread the love, spread the fashion business love. All right, folks, have a great day. Bye.